Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Note Closer Show. I'm your host, Scott Carson. Excited to be here and extremely jacked up today to have our good friend Brent Garrett join us all the way from Southwest Florida. Now, what I love about Brent is not only a friend, he's also an amazing investor, one of the best real estate agents that I have ever met. I mean, if I could clone you, Brent, I would clone you, okay? But first and foremost, you're also a note investor as well, besides being a real estate investor. And as we continue our series, one of the things we're doing with our podcast is focusing on different markets across the country that we see a lot of opportunity in, have seen opportunity, and we expect to see continuing opportunity. But good morning, almost good afternoon from Florida today, huh?
Yeah, we're at noon right now.
There you go. It's not 5 o'clock yet, so let's not pop a top. But anyway.
Not yet.
So, Brent, why don't you share with people a little bit about your journey and how you kind of initially got into the note space a few years back? Because we've known each other, going on 5-6 years now? For the most part?
Geez. No, I would say more like 10 almost.
Yeah, you're right. It is about 10 now. You think about it, yeah.
No, I started out working real estate traditionally. The market obviously crashed, and I got introduced to a couple gentlemen that got me going to conferences to start working with the banks. So I ended up being able to get in with a few banks to start selling their foreclosures. And from there, I met a few hedge funds that kind of led me a different direction as opposed to buying foreclosures. So we ended up starting to purchase notes part-time, as long as selling real estate and selling foreclosures. At the peak of the foreclosure market, we were selling roughly 70 to 120 foreclosures a year. From there, we really started to transition into buying the foreclosures. But in our market, it's a little bit more difficult. There's a lot of investors here, so kind of everybody jumped on the bandwagon at the same time. Prices started to rise on the purchase of foreclosures to where you were almost paying retail for a foreclosure, and there was just not a lot of margin through that. Again, I met the hedge funds, and they said, hey, look, we have these notes we're selling. I know you don't know what you're doing, but if you can figure it out, there's a great opportunity. And so obviously went to your classes, purchased a couple before I went to your classes, and kind of relied on the local attorneys in the area to hold my hand, walk me through the process of what to do, what not to do. From there, I, again, went to your classes, learned quite a bit, and sat and just soaked in as much information as I possibly could, came back, and it's been sky high ever since. I mean, I went a little bit more into the local attorney side to purchasing now, just because it seems like the major operations, their prices are kind of starting to rise. But in finding the local attorneys that, know people who do like one-off owner financing deals, and then the people just don't want to deal with the process of foreclosing on it, been able to actually stay underneath the market, if you will, and still be able to purchase at about 50 to 60 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, and I love that. I think that's such a great nugget that you just gave there. Is a lot of people get lazy going with the low-hanging fruit, and we see that in the note space. We see a lot of REO refugees, people that were used to buying from REO agents or buying at the courthouse steps. They're not seeing that product anymore, right?
No, I mean, in our area, we're down foreclosures. I think in January, there was only 85 foreclosures sold. So I used to go from getting, again, in anywhere from pre-marketing to sale, I probably have at least 50 to 75, or, probably about 50 properties in my pipeline at any point in time. And at this rate, I've got, I think, 3 in my pipeline right now. They expect that we're supposed to be getting some newer inventory. But the problem in our market is that, as a foreclosure agent, when a bank asks me to list a property, they make me do a valuation, a BPO, a broker price opinion. And now when I do that valuation, I'm comparing the property to fair market value properties. So that, in essence, unless the property needs a ton of work, I'm going to be paying almost, retail value for that property, which is, it's just not feasible to make money doing that if you're going to be turning the properties. So from my perspective, the note game is still where it's at. I mean, again, there's getting a lot more players in here as well, but and I guess my market's a lot different just because everybody knows Florida's a really big market. So you're overpaying a lot of times, or not necessarily overpaying, but you're paying a premium to be in Florida. But I think if you find the right avenues, like I think I have now, it's just really reaching out to the local attorneys and, putting my money where my mouth is. If they bring me a deal and the numbers are clean and the paper is clean, I buy them every single time. So, the guys know they can come to me, rely on me, and it's done well.
And the beauty of that aspect is, and I mentioned this beginning of January or the end of December. I can't remember which webinar I talked about how I really believe that people buying the non-performing owner financed assets is going to be a big market that a lot of people are going. Everybody gets excited about owner financing as an exit strategy to sell their asset, but they don't talk about the fact of you're going to have some things that go non-performing. That people are non-performing, not any fault to the person who's on the loan. It's just that maybe the balloons or the time frame is set that the person can't get refinanced out, or it's adjustable rate, or other things like that. So it leaves a lot of opportunity if you're willing to farm the local market. And you're a local guy there. And let's talk about your market. Let's talk about some of the cities. You're in Fort Myers, Cape Coral area, right?
Yeah, I work on Lee County, so it'd be Lehigh Acres, Cape Coral, Fort Myers Beach. Just in general, the Lee County market. I do tap into a little bit of the Collier market if I get the opportunity. Obviously, that's the richest city in Florida. So
we're talking about Naples and Marco Island and all of those that area there, right?
I love to tap into that market if I get the opportunity, but my backyard is definitely Lee County.
Well, the thing that's funny about Marco Island is, doesn't Marco Island have like 800 realtors?
You know what? I mean, right now in Lee County, I believe, or at least in our MLS system, which stretches kind of down into Collier County, I think we have about 4,800 realtors.
Right. But I'm saying that Marco Island has so many realtors that won't even drive across the bridge to Naples to sell.
No, you're typically, your neighbor is also a realtor. So it's a tougher market, but we've built our niche and put a lot of money into advertising. So, I mean, last year we did about 10.3 million in sales, which is a pretty healthy market. So
that's a very healthy. Congratulations to you, brother. That's exciting stuff. I know that you and your wife do a great job of kicking butt and taking names. And sometimes you are working pretty long hours and stuff like that, but it's still, you're still going to have a lot of good time. And then obviously fun with the kids as well too for you, which is great.
Absolutely.
So are you on your when you're buying these non-performing notes, owner finance notes from the local attorneys and stuff like that, I'm willing to bet you're probably taking these to foreclosure or cash for keys or deed and liens. Are you modifying any of them?
Yeah, actually, I've got one that I just bought in Lehigh Acres. I did really well on. The gentleman just wanted out. He was elderly and just said he didn't have the time. So I bought it for $50,000. The people owed I think $90,000 on it. And I'm working through a process right now to redo a loan for them. Because it's owner financing, I don't think we necessarily are going to do like a loan mod. I think we're just going to completely rewrite the mortgage.
Rewrite it, recast it.
And then just make sure that they get all their numbers in escrow. And then that should pay a pretty good return. So, and actually, luckily, I'm getting to charge her 8% interest. And I'm also getting to raise the price of the property to, I think, like I said, she owed close to 90, and I think I'm going to rewrite it at 100,000, which is still great for them because the property value of it is $115,000, $120,000. So she's still making out, she's still coming in 20% below the market value, gets to keep her home, and we're all happy. Everybody's making out. So
that's a good thing. You guys have seen, and I have to thank you because you have been a big part of the assets we have bought down there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Taking.
I'm here for anybody else as well. If you see an asset, I have no hesitation to go look at it. If you want a joint venture on it, I've got plenty of capital in hand to help parlay it. I can take care of the properties just like I've done for you. I can rehab them. I have a construction crew that does a lot of my rehabs on properties for my clients as well as for myself. So we're pretty well set up here in the market to take care of anybody.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the market. You've obviously the last couple of years seen quite a bit of appreciation. I mean, the market would you say the market's fully recovered from the low point in 2010?
Yeah, we're actually seeing a lot of people now that are able to finally get out from underneath their mortgage and they're finally upgrading. So there's a lot of folks that bought back in, 05, decided to hold on to their property, decided they wanted to pay their mortgage and now those people are finally able to upgrade. So we're seeing a lot of traditional sales, a lot of people who are finally upgrading and getting the home that they truly wanted and thought they would be able to get years ago.
That's a good thing. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. Now let's talk about, are you seeing foreclosures drag on? I mean, at the peak they were taking 18 plus. I've had a few drag on to 2 years, but what are you kind of seeing foreclosures take as far as timeframes down there for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're still looking about 8 months to 10, just depending on if there's any discrepancy or any problems with the actual borrower, obviously fighting us or filing bankruptcy. But I would say that it's definitely sped up some. Again, I've been focusing more on the traditional, or the owner financing sites. So it seems to be a little bit smoother.
Sure.
I've been able to offer cash for keys. I've been able to make concessions to people to kind of make it worth their while not to foreclose on them. So that's been beneficial for us to actually move forward. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely because there's a lot less, obviously. So when there's a lot less of them, then the courts seem to push them through quite a bit quicker.
So let's talk about some of those concessions. Are you talking about like cash for keys or moving expenses or deposits on apartments? What are some of the things that you're doing as concessions?
I would say all of the above of those. Cash for keys is really a big, thing that I'm a proponent of because it allows the people to get into a new home. Obviously, rewriting the mortgage is huge. I've, said, look, don't pay me for 6 months, but in 6 months, I expect you to start paying, but I'm going to start the foreclosure process, but I will not foreclose on you if you can show the ability to raise capital for yourself. And then I will rewrite your mortgage in 6 months. And I give them the opportunity. Again, I'm buying a pretty low valued assets for the most part. So I'm able to kind of sit back and just take a little bit of a bath on the first 6 months and then try and rewrite the mortgage for them and make it so that everybody kind of wins.
So let's talk about those numbers. What do you mean is a low level number? Are you talking sub $100,000 valued? Or?
No, I mean, I think in the past year I've bought, one at 450, one at 200. But most of the assets I try and tackle are under 100,000 because if a lot of them, if they don't perform, I'm probably not going to sell them. I'm going to turn them into rental properties. Right now in Florida, I mean, our rental increase year over year is just astronomical. I mean, we're one of the top places in the country for rent increases, top place in the country for job growth, one of the top places for lack of rentals. A lot of the folks that were coming down here and then and staying for season and then leaving, a lot of them are actually coming to stay. I mean, when you have 3 nor'easters come through the Northeast in 3 weeks, people are just not going home. So those rentals have dried up and there's a real, there's a lack of inventory in the market. So you have an ability to raise rents pretty quickly over the past 3 to 4 years. It's been fantastic. I mean, I can't tell you how great it's been.
That boat has been upgraded a couple of times along the way.
It's doing all right. And no, I still got the same boat. I'm too cheap and I don't ever get to go on it. So there's no chance for a new one.
Guys, if you have questions for our buddy Brent, now's the time to ask that here in the comments here on Facebook Live. If you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher, Brent, what's your guys' website for those that are listening?
Yeah, well, it's realestate-ftmyers.com. is our main website. You can also email me at sellyourreos@hotmail.com. That's sellyourreos@hotmail.com.
You got a Hotmail account? Wow, it's been around.
I have a Google one too. I do have a Google one. If you want to Google, I know. At least it's not AOL. All right, I got not on AOL. But yeah, I still am using the Hotmail account. The problem is before when it first got going, you got all those banks that have your email. It's hard to transfer out of that. So I'm going to rock that email forever.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you were a proponent, or not a proponent, principal in an exchange at one point.
Correct.
You want to talk a little about that and your experience with that and how it just kind of went a different route?
Are you like when we started being able to transfer notes for people?
Yeah.
No, at one point in time, we had a company where we people who were looking to sell their assets before they foreclosed on them would reach out to us and we would, hook them up with other buyers. I've got a pretty large buyer pool over the course of the 15 years I've been selling real estate. And again, because the notes have become more popular, there's a lot of people who buy notes that just want to wholesale them out. And I'm a big buyer of those myself, but I do have a large buyer pool with millions of dollars ready to spend.
So that's the thing I think a lot of people miss out, because there was a conversation in one of our online Basecamp groups about somebody trying to send an email out for the first time to the smallest asset managers, and the email system shut them down because it was such a new thing. You've taken the time and developed your list over 10, 15 years. how often do you guys send something out to your database on a regular basis? Is it once a week, once, twice a week as stuff pops up? What's up?
No, I mean, I would say it's mostly when stuff pops up. I mean, again, I'm really fortunate to have a couple of bigger players that have a ton of capital. So I'm a little different than a lot of people who go out and kind of reach out to try and gain capital from 10 or 15 people. I have a healthy pool of investors who have seen just through the years of me, doing 50-50s with them on buying foreclosures, fixing them up and selling them, to where I've really built that trust level with them. So they don't really interact with me through this. They just say, if I say, hey, look, this is what I need. Honestly, the money shows up in my account, and I tend to try and buy a lot of them. I mean, especially in the South Florida area from Tampa, Orlando, and South, I'm really trying to buy them myself. If they're out of the state of Florida, I still have buyers for them, but they're going to be a lot more hesitant, and it's going to be a little bit slower process just because those are not our main markets. I do have realtors that I deal with in those markets, but I'm the type of guy I really like to touch an asset. So, and when I'm going to take my guy's money, I got to make sure that the deal makes sense and that, I'm not buying something that, was burned down 2 weeks earlier. So, but in this area, we have plenty of capital to spend. So.
Yeah, you got plenty of capital, but the thing is important is I like the fact is that you built a relationship and you were able to, because we get a lot of REO guys that come in. They're like, well, I don't know if my guys will be interested in doing notes. I'm like, well, they can either put their money into some notes or it's going to sit there not making anything, right?
Yeah, I guess you can go make like 2% on it or something like that at the bank. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, that's the key. Like, was building those relationships was everything, and it takes time. I didn't go ask them for, $500,000 up front. I kind of started slow. The nice thing now is I'm using my own capital to keep the smaller assets, using their capital to buy the bigger assets. They get a really good return on investment. And I'm not a greedy guy by any means, so my returns are probably higher than a lot of people's. But building that relationship and seeing that they know it's a 50-50 split, I let them put liens against some of my assets that I own cash. That way it gives them the warm, fuzzy feeling until we build that relationship and they trust me. So it's taken a long time to build this, but it's been beneficial for all parties involved. So
it totally has. And you have one thing you are never afraid of is a 4-letter word called work.
Oh, yeah, I like to work. When you grew up a military brat and your dad was in the military, and they raised you to use your manners and work your ass off. So
that's right, and a good Texas boy as well, too, right? But that's the thing. I think it's important. A lot of people, especially when you're in a state or markets are nearby that have inventory, get out there and learn those markets. Get out and know those. Would you have is there any advice you'd give to people that are brand new when they're approaching agents to kind of either pull BPOs or CMAs or help them with some market research? Any tips that you'd like to tell the new investors out there?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, make sure you do a lot of due diligence on the realtors you're using, because especially in my market. In my market, again, there's 4,800 realtors. Out of 4,800, there's probably 100 truly selling real estate. The other 4,700 have other jobs. I mean, you may have maybe 100's low. You probably have 250 solid realtors that we all kind of know each other. We all, the realtors, when you start talking to them, ask them the right questions. How's the market doing? Have you ever dealt with something like this before? Because I have people all the time that come to me and they go to a new realtor first, and the new realtor's never even heard of a BPO. The new realtor has no idea how to do a CMA. I see assets or, properties come on the market all the time that are grossly overpriced just because they really are trying to get their feet wet in the market. Even though they're brand new to the market, they have no idea what they're doing. They'll take an overpriced listing. So you want to make sure that you're getting the right agent, because if you don't, they're just going to tell you what you want to hear. So that way you foreclose on it so that they get a listing, and then it could bite you in the butt pretty big. So just, try and do your due diligence. Make sure that that you're hiring a legitimate agent that does business in this market, because there's just way too many of them that don't, and you'll be out of the no business before you even get in it, because it's just, you gotta have those reliable sources to help you through this process.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good pointer there. Knowing somebody knows exactly what they're doing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with new agents because they're hungry, but you also want to make sure that they've got support behind them to help out with some things too, And
it's good to hire an agent too that actually has the ability to, because most people who are going to be buying assets in Florida are not going to be in this market. So you've got to have the agent. You also want to ask and make sure that he has plumbers, carpet people, painters, AC guys. You got to have a good pool of people behind you, because anybody can just sell you an asset. But if you can't get it fixed up to get it sold, then you're going to sell it at a discounted price, and you're going to leave money on the table every time.
Yeah, that's good point there, Brett. Definitely with that. Question here. Clifton online says, well, first of all, Brian says good information. He's loving what you're sharing, so nothing wrong with that. Clifton says, what methods, if you don't mind sharing, are you using to locate your owner finance deals?
Well, it's a couple of things. One is if the people are already in there and they're still in there. For some reason down here, our market just moves so fast. It's pretty easy for me just to put it on my MLS system and just really put it. As soon as I put it on the MLS system, then it hits Zillow. And once it hits Zillow and Trulia, and it says, first line is owner financing available. Here's the terms. Call me if you're interested. They typically call me direct. So I'm not dealing with another realtor necessarily. Everything's out in the open. I do underwrite all of my owner financing just to make sure I'm in compliance with all the codes, but looks like maybe Frank Dodd's going to be lightening up, which would be great. But so we try and Craigslist is great. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. Putting signs in the ground around the property, around the neighborhood of that property. A lot of times people are renting 3 doors down, and they said, man, if I could own instead of, I'm renting for $900, but I could own or finance for $8. Well, all I got to do is come up with 10 grand. You call your mom, say, Mom, can I get 10 grand? And so, I don't know. I really hit the market. You can obviously go to your REO or your REIA groups. I mean, there's a lot of people there that are investors that are starting out there as well. And they don't have a lot of capital, but they want to start to own multiple properties. So going to the REO or REIA groups is a really good avenue as well.
What about your non-performing owner finance notes? Are you wanting to give away a secret how you find some of those?
Most of those, again, I mean, we either rewrite the mortgage or we.
No, how are you finding those? Like, are you talking?
Oh, again, for me, I've been really fortunate to build a lot of relationships. So I'm seeing lists come out. A lot of the lists lately are, it's tough to get them because, again, everybody down here in my neck of the woods, and I sell so much real estate that I don't have time to go hunting and doing tons of research in different states. So I'm shooting myself in the foot every day. I get told all the time by you and others that I need to get outside my market, but it's just so difficult with the amount of work I do.
No. Hang on a second here. I have said that in the past. I've not said that lately because you have.
I think you even said it last December.
Hey, have you thought about? Because you came to me like, oh, I got somebody. I said, well, have you got about outside of Florida? You're like, no, but now you're telling me this great tool how you're reaching out to like the attorneys that are foreclosing on owner finance, and those are your sources.
That to me has seemed like a really healthy market to tap into because one, that attorney knows that he's going to get to do the foreclosure on it if it does. He's also the one that's going to get to rewrite the mortgage. And down here, a lot of attorneys own title companies. So then they're also going to get the proceeds from actually rewriting the mortgage, closing the file, get paid. They get a little bit of money for writing a new title insurance policy. So it seems to be beneficial for both sides for them to rely on me and know that I'm going to come back to them. And if they're going to come to me, I'm going to reciprocate the business back.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing is that with the still being an 8-month or 10-month foreclosure time frame, it allows you to negotiate a discount versus something like here in Texas where you snap your fingers, you can foreclose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, we're not there. It's not going to happen. I don't think we're ever going to get less than 6 months. It just seems like it's tough. I mean. Yeah,
exactly. That is. What are the questions you guys have for Brent? Stephanie says, good morning. Good to see you, brother, as well.
Hey, tell her I said hello.
He sends her love. One of the beautiful things that I love about Southwest Florida is the weather. Now, you guys, obviously, it's as you said, you have a bit of a cold snap of being 60 degrees.
It's 60. It was like 62 degrees when I golfed yesterday.
Just shut up, dude. Shut up. All the people in the Northeast are going to start throwing daggers at you.
Yeah, I apologize. I know I had a jacket on. I'm a cracker now, so it was cold. I've lived in the North. I understand it's not as cold, but when you're here and in the middle of January and February, it's 85 to 90 degrees. 60 feels a little chilly. So
yeah, God's waiting room has the AC on high right now.
I only own 2 pair of pants, and I had to wear them. So, I mean, I wear shorts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I did have to put on some pants yesterday.
Except when you're going to Cancun or Jamaica or something like that for a wedding, I put on some flannel or some khakis.
Well, I own like 2 suits too. I'm just saying like regular pants, you know.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you see, you may know this, you may not, do you see a lot of estate stuff or stuff that falls into like deceased, like probate stuff that hits your guys' market down there because you are such kind of a little bit of an older demographic?
I don't see a lot of it. A lot of times, I mean, I do see because I'm kind of always hunting for property, so I do see stuff that I actually just bought a property 3 months ago from a gentleman who was elderly. His family took over the property, and I ended up buying that on a pretty healthy discount just because they were up north and didn't want to deal with it. But for the most part, I don't really get into that side of it. It just was an opportunity that fell in my lap. From somebody that just knew I would buy it if the numbers were right. So worked out.
Yeah. There any other kind of cookie weird things about Southwest Florida that people need to know about if they're looking to invest in that neck of the woods? I mean, obviously foreclosure time frame and then
no, I mean, we're in a really great market. Again, I mean, as far as especially Lee County where I live, it's our market is doing phenomenal. I think our like from January 2003 or no, not three, maybe 13. Our median price range has gone up astronomically. I mean, I think we were at 130,000 for our median price range, and now we're over 225. So it's I mean, the numbers are moving. We're in a great market. It's hard. That's another thing. It's hard for me to get out of our market because our market's so great. But again, I'm just like everybody else having a hard time, finding solid inventory. So you just got to really hit the books and do the research and reach out to as many people as you can and talk to as many people as you can and tell them what you're doing. Because if you do, inevitably people, once they trust you and they know you're going to perform what you say you're going to do, then typically it starts to turn into a healthy relationship with you and others.
Right. Now you guys, what are you seeing? Are you starting to see prices kind of plateau off a little bit along with days on market stretch out or days on market still short? Let's talk about a little bit some of the like in other markets, things are starting to kind of have leveled off for the most part. What are you seeing there in Southwest Florida?
I would say we're seeing everything under 200,000 is still doing really well, about 45 days on market, coming in price-wise about 94 to 97% of list price.
Wow.
But our market over 2 and really maybe even like closer to 250 is getting pretty stale. I mean, it's stagnant. It's plateaued. We're seeing days on market there anywhere from 60 to 90 days with price reductions in between to actually get the home sold. So it's we're definitely seeing now again under 200, our market's on fire. I mean, I think it's because a lot of people are like, all right, I better get off the fence now. So you're getting a lot of first-time home buyers, VA buyers, people from up north coming down with cash and just saying, look, I just want to get in the market. And then when I'm here and I understand the market better, then I can upgrade, but I just want to get in. But yeah, over that 250 marker, man, I would say we're definitely 2 to 250 and above, definitely slower. You get over 400, 450, you're seeing a pretty big drop off, except for in new construction. I mean, new construction is booming in our market right now. So, I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of houses being built. I would say thousands of houses being built right now. Those are doing really well because they're kind of building a little bit cheaper. They're not putting the high-end upgrades in them. So they're being able to kind of sell them almost at a retail, a little bit over retail value, but the people are excited because they're getting a brand new home. So.
Mm-hmm. And that's true. If you look back at the peak, there was a lot of, new development going on with lots and other, housing developments out in that neck of the woods. And then when the music stopped, you had a lot of these lots that were just sitting there, some unfinished. The ones that were partially finished have obviously been built up, but then you had a lot of lots sitting there that were undone. And now that's allowed for these companies to go in and buy these other lots to start rebuilding again. Correct?
I mean, in Cape Coral alone, during the peak of the market, there wasn't a lot under $100,000. And that's for a dry lot. When the market tanked, I mean, those lots were $2,500. So, I mean, people lost everything, I mean, it was a really bad fall here in our area. We were probably one of the top 2 or 3 in the country for the fall of the market. I mean, a house that was $270,000 was selling for $60,000. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're definitely back. I mean, we're moving the right direction for sure. And we've had an excellent, 8-9 years now. So it's we're back. Like I said, we're back to the point where people can actually get out of their house and get into a new one. So it's good.
That's a very good thing. For good question here. Let's see here. I think you answered that. What price range is his favorite price range in the market? You answered that, which is awesome.
And I loved under 200. I mean, if I find anything under 200, I'm buying it because I know that the numbers will make sense to sell. And as long as, again, I mean, the value of it's 200, I try to buy, under that, that 150 marker, somewhere in that ballpark. So that way I'm still got my return coming in.
Exactly. And one of the funny things is we looked at, this is a little side thing. I am still banging heads with an asset manager over at a fund that we won't name on all those loans in Florida. They wanted to sell at 80% of UPB. I'm still trying to bash him down. The minute he gets down to around 70, 65, we're going to jump on it like white on rice, my friend. All right.
You got it, man. I'm ready.
What other questions do you have? Just so you guys know, Brent is a big fan of Bud Light and the Dallas Cowboys. If you wanted to find him.
Thanks.
Exactly.
You got to play hard.
You work hard and play hard. Amen to that. And one of the great things is if you have not met Brent, he's actually coming to the Note Mastermind group in Cape Coral here in a couple of weeks. He's been a member for a couple of years. We love having him there because he's just a great wealth of information, as you can find out. And Brent, I have to give you kudos. You don't give yourself a lot of credit for what you know as a note investor. You're very knowledgeable and knowledgeable, seasoned. One of the beautiful things, I think you have the due diligence down better than anybody else on an asset and things like that. You and your wife do an amazing job. So maybe I'm talking more about her than you, but we'll just pass that on.
I honest to God, I'm a bonehead. I surround myself with really smart people who know a lot more than I do, and I soak up knowledge just like I did from you. I mean, I try and sit back, soak up as much knowledge as possible, and I really try and rely on the people who know more than I do, because honestly, I'd rather be the dumbest guy in the room as long as the money's coming in. So,
amen to that, brother. Amen to that. I agree with that totally. So, hey, man, I want to thank you.
My wife is the one who does all the work. Without a doubt. I'm on the road all day showing property, checking on properties, and she sits behind the desk all day doing all the work.
Well, she's knowledgeable, very humble too. She's always very quiet behind the scenes, which is great.
She's reserved. She's the opposite of me.
It was great meeting her last in Orlando a while back. It was great stuff, and everybody's like, "What? What did you have to do? You out-punted your coverage very easily there. That was just awesome. Good stuff."
I definitely married up. Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Well, make sure you tell her hi for us. We hopefully get a chance to see her again here in a couple of weeks. As always, guys, Brent Garrett, amazing job. Once again, give them your website again there.
Sure, yeah. It's www.realestate-ftmyers.com.
Yeah, realestate-fortmyers.com. As always, Brent Garrett does an amazing job out there, guys. If you have any assets out that neck of the woods, stuff like that, hey, he's your guy. Either A, to help you out with it, or maybe even buy it from you as well, too, for you.
Absolutely, and I have no problem going and checking on an asset for you. Again, for me, it's about building relationships. I'm not a huge fan if you're sending me 50 of them to go look at, but if you've got some stuff and you want to look at it and you're going to allow me to be on the backside helping you the whole way and selling it for you, then I'm your guy. I would love to help.
Exactly. And if you send them out and you don't use them, you will have the wrath of me on your ass. Good stuff. All right. Well, hey, Brent, thanks for joining us. Take care, buddy. Stay out of trouble, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks, my friend.
You got it, man. It was a pleasure. Take it easy.
Thanks, bud. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Hopefully you got a lot of some great nuggets there that you can take and apply to your own market. I think that whole reaching out to the trustees, the local attorneys that are handling the foreclosures is a nugget so well worth listening to on this episode. So take and apply it to your local market, and you never know what you're going to find. God knows I probably need to do that a little bit more in the Austin market, which is just as competitive, if not more than Lee County. So have a great day, guys. We'll see you all at the top. Thanks again, Brett.
Take it easy, guys.